Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A Live. This is where you ask a question on Twitter with the hashtag Q&A, and I will answer your questions here in the Marketing Kitchen. Welcome, marketing chefs. I've got something truly special cooking in our Omni-Channel oven today. Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A Live, Chapter 5. Up next in the Marketing Kitchen. Welcome to the kitchen, the Marketing Kitchen. Hi, I'm Ron Vining, your host of Marketing Kitchen TV. Welcome to @MarketingKitchen TV Q&A Live. All you need to do is go to @MarketingKitchen TV on Twitter, use the hashtag Q&A, and I will answer your questions here. Welcome back to Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A Live. This is Chapter 5. All right, I like the way that one sounds. I almost want to say that again. Welcome back to Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A Live. This is Chapter 5. All right, our first question today is from Matthew, and Matthew asks, both Dell and Zara have proven their worth as B2C and B2B marketers, respectively. Dell is suffering from high competition due to increasingly lower barriers to entry. What emerging trends will be most disruptive to Zara? Okay, interesting question. Again, I'm just answering these off the top of my head. So without some prep here, let me think for a second. Let me reread your question too, make sure I get it right. Both Dell and Zara have proven their worth as B2C and B2B marketers, Dell being pretty much the B2B, even though they also sell B2C, and Zara being the B2C company. Dell is suffering from high competition due to increasingly low barriers to entry. Dell has actually branched out into a number of different markets. And in fact, last year Dell wanted to engage with me on a product to both enhance their relationships with their B2B partners. It was sort of a competition with a whole masterclass piece to it, where I would be sort of, the upsell would be I'd be training them. I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying that, because just about everybody in the space is doing things about that now. I didn't end up doing that. We couldn't come to agreement on some terms, but I thought they had an interesting program. Zara being, and I love retail. I've spent a lot of time working in retail myself. I started out in retail and then ran shopping malls and then became an advisor to a number of retail brands as well. What is Zara suffering from? What trends could disrupt their business? Well, certainly, so Zara, their claim to fame, right, is, I wouldn't call them knockoffs, but Zara is about having the quickest to market with the most trendiest fashion. Not ever making too much of that particular product, distributing it around the globe, selling it quickly at, I wouldn't say at a high markup price, but anyway, they're printing money, and they've been quite effective at it for a number of years. But the way that they've done their marketing and their supply chain and how they're so quick to market, that also has been replicated by a number of other companies. Even major brands have been quick to capitalize on that. I look at like Abercrombie and Fitch versus Aeropostale. One of them was the darling of Wall Street, and then things flipped, and then Aeropostale was that. So I guess I just want to answer your question specifically, as well as I just want to ramble on talking about it. Anyway, it's a great subject. But what emerging trends will be most disruptive to Zara? Well, certainly one of them is the fact that when customers are now, their appetite has been whet for e-commerce, a lot of the major players can shift to the same model that Zara has been using, a road at what was a space that they sort of own the market on. Another is the fact that the barriers to entry are certainly much lower for another upstart to come into the marketplace as well. And so just as Dell, I remember, so Dell benefited, Michael Dell, he benefited from being a first mover in the sort of mail order PC business at a time when everyone wanted to have a PC in their home. And he then bought up most of the competition, which then actually both helped, and so it consolidated the market, but it also hurt Dell because they took on some debt at that time too. And then the market shifted and the margins on laptops weren't as great as the margins on desktops were. People and other players got into the business, and then the trend shifted more so to retail as opposed to mail order, and Dell was not equipped for that, and that really wasn't the Dell customer. And then Dell switched to B2B more so than B2C, even though they still do. And of course they bought Alienware, so they make the Alienware as a gaming laptop or gaming desktop product, which has been successful for them in the B2C space. One of the ways that Dell is surviving is that they're also moving out of, or have moved out of, not completely, but they've gone into consulting and value-added services. They've gone into cloud computing and storage solutions, enabling e-commerce, much in the way that Amazon's AWS, Amazon Web Services, does. Things that can hurt Zara are the same types of things that hurt Dell. How does Zara mitigate this disruption? They would need to look at different models for them. Perhaps they will go to a smaller, more boutique type of a store. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they go big, they go large. As big box retailers are taking shape, as departmental stores are leaving the landscape, unfortunately, with a number of bankruptcies that have been filed, there's going to be a lot of real estate space in shopping malls. And there's an opportunity here for Zara to change up its model with an online-offline situation. Zara could, just as Dell offered customized PCs, Zara could start offering customized clothing lines. Maybe they are doing that already. But anyway, great question, Matt, and I hope that I answered that for you. But I love it. There's a great future still left for traditional retail, and I'm going to start a new consulting arm in that space sometime this year, because I just love retail. I love traditional brick and mortar retail. Of course, there has to be that online-offline hybrid aspect, omni-channel aspect to it. There has to be an e-commerce piece of the equation for sure, but I really think that there's a future for it still. And I think it from a societal standpoint, that physical engagement, going to a shopping mall, is important to us. And I think it will remain. So, but it obviously has to be tweaked. So our second question today, and Sandy asks, what are the complications and challenges companies face when integrating their supply chain? Okay, in chapter 4, right? Am I doing oh yeah, I'm chapter 5. Yeah, so in chapter 4, yeah, live episode 5, how soon do I forget? In chapter 4, we talked about supply chain a bit. So I refer you to that chapter because I gave a lot of information about that. Let me look at Jack's tweet just to see a bit more specifically what it is, the avenue that or the angle you're taking there. From 5 to 6% in revenue savings to 20 to 60% improvements in inventory, from 10 to, don't have my glasses on, 16% improvements in productivity, companies should start looking, yeah, sure, at enhancing or bolstering their supply chain. What are some of the complications and challenges in integrating one's supply chain? Well, legacy architecture is one of them. When I say architecture, that can mean two things. That can certainly be the physical plant of your factory. It can, or your so your manufacturing plant, your distribution center, your warehouse. That can be one of them, so that type of architecture. Another can be your software architecture. What systems are you using? Do you have legacy systems that need to be updated? Can those legacy systems be updated easily, or is it going to be a very difficult or a huge lift in migration from a legacy architecture to new? So going back to the physical, does your physical plant need to be modified or upgraded? Do robotics need to be brought in? Does more increasing automation and AI need to be brought in with that whole system so that you're fully integrating with your online and offline technologies? The main challenge, I guess, to that is money. Another complication to that is the ability to migrate from one system to the other without major disruptions, major cash. Another piece of that equation too is training, and will you need to rehire? Will you be able to retrain? How long of a process will this journey take? How many headaches will there be? And again, I always say that you should look at a similar company that has done a similar type of migration, and maybe they're a non-competitor, but they do something very similar to you, maybe size and scope or market space, whatever it might be, and partner with them. Ask them perhaps for them to help you. Maybe you retain one of their customers, you retain one of their employees on a share basis to help you with that migration. Maybe you bring in an external consultant to do that. There's a number of things that you can do to help alleviate that. But you'd want to do a test first before you went on a full bore lift like that or change, because that in itself would be disruptive, quite disruptive, and you wouldn't want to do that. All right, I hope I answered your question there. Next up, IoT is keeping us connected at the same time raising some sorts of privacy concerns. How can we balance the convenience and the concerns? That is a question of the day. So IoT stands for Internet of Things. It is keeping us connected, certainly, across everything, right? So above me is my Samsung air conditioner, which is Wi-Fi enabled, and of course I can power it from here with my HomeKit if I want to. Same thing is true for my washing machine that's over there. Same is true for my robot vacuum cleaner over there. In fact, all of those are, one of them's LG, but my fridge is not a smart fridge, but a lot of the products here in my home are smart products. Of course, smart product, what I'm recording on, iPad, smart product. When we talk about Internet of Things, it's everything. And when we're talking about things that governments are doing, I won't mention any names, but there's a government, there's one place on the world that's about to roll out a tracking device that they say is not a tracking device. They're calling it a token that will be tracking for contact tracing. The whole idea, it's so funny. If you're going to be doing contact tracing, the whole word tracing there, doesn't that mean that you are tracking? But anyway, we just play with words. We live in a fully IoT environment. Just about everything we say and do, with street cams, with traffic cams, with cams in the subway, cameras that we put in our car, smart assistants like Alexa in our home or HomePod, you name it. Everything we do is being tracked, monitored at the moment. And it's really about buyer beware in how do you protect yourself. Then we need government to protect us because the corporations are not going to. But at the same time, we cannot trust government either. The US government, James Brennan, the former director of the CIA, testified before Congress and said the NSA is not spying upon individual Americans. Yeah, he was spying on every single American. So, and he lied before Congress. He got away with it. He's now an analyst or a paid commentator on CNN or MSNBC. Come on. So our governments need to do better. If governments aren't going to protect us, corporations aren't going to protect us, you as the consumer have to protect yourself. So buyer beware. your question is, how can we balance convenience and these concerns? You can't. So you're going to have to say no to the convenience if you're concerned about what's being collected about you. There are things that you can do to minimize that, right? You can minimize what you say and do on social. You can set as many privacy limits as possible on there, but you're still going to be fully tracked. I've seen, you can watch YouTube videos on this, just search for it. People that they've turned off their cell phone, and then they've looked to see the data stream once they turn it back on, and to see whether so they had two phones on them. One of them was turned on, one of them was turned off. And even your Android phone that's off, once you turn it back on, the data that is uploaded to Google's system about you, what you did, even though your phone was turned off. James Comey, I believe it was, the former FBI director, he said that he puts tape on his camera, the camera, and he puts tape or a piece of paper on the camera on his laptop. And what he does is that he plugs in his microphone, the microphone jack, right, into his device, and then he cuts the cord on that. And that is the only way that he said that your phone or computer is secure from prying eyes and ears. But then a number of devices are doing away with the headset piece, right? And they're going to Bluetooth. Well, with Bluetooth, you don't know when it's being turned on, what's being listened to. So yeah, it's really on you. And what you need to do as the consumer is to complain to these brands online. And what you need to do as a consumer is complain to politicians and tell them to demand that there be increased privacy, and that they make it illegal for these brands to collect all of this data. And then somebody needs to watch the government, because we can't trust the government as well. And the reason why, and I'm not being paranoid to say that, I'm just saying we can't trust the government because the government has lied to us and it's been found out. Yeah, it's sort of out of our hands. But if you don't make noise about it, or if you don't protest with your wallet, and if you don't protest by canceling your Facebook account or your Twitter account, or ditching your cell phone, then it's on you. All right, great question though. Next. All right, so that was our third question. Our fourth question. After a global outbreak of, I'm not mentioning that because of Google's algorithm. So anyway, after a global outbreak of what's been afflicting us, some companies announced that employees could use the internet to work from home permanently. In the near future, do you think remote work will become the way most people work? Okay, I answered this in chapter 3, I think it was, of this series. So, but it was a similar question, it wasn't the same question. So I'll answer just specifically here, but you want to go to that other episode to where I spent more time on it. I'm going to just specifically answer, do you think remote work will become the way most people work? And the answer is no. I do not believe remote work will become the way most people will work. Why? Because, one, work-life balance. If you take your work home, there is no work-life balance. When, at least in the physical world, when you leave the office, you are forced, in most ways anyway, to have balance. If you're working from home, there will be no balance. Trust me. Trust me from somebody who's taught fully online for 11 years now, and also has had a fully virtual business for 5 years. There is no such thing as work-life balance when you work from home. Next, productivity. Productivity, even though you may be working more time, more hours from home, you are going to be less productive. So as a corporation, when the corporation realizes that the amount of money that they're saving by having a remote workforce is a net negative because of the fact that the quality of the work and quality of innovation, lack of collaboration will they'll be seeing declining profits as a result of that. The company. So not only will employees demand to go back to the office, employers will demand that employees work in the office. That's just my personal opinion based upon past data as well as my own experience, right? And as a futurist marketer or a futurist management consultant, I would say that that is true. Now, will more employees work from home next year than work from home last year? Yes. Will more employees work from home 3 years from now than last year? Yes. But I believe that when people can fully return to work and when companies can fully operate offices in a way they manner being deemed safe, then the physical workspace will continue. There's another piece to this equation too. You know, companies are not having their employees stay at home necessarily because they want to and or because they're abiding by the government. They're doing it because they're afraid of lawsuits. So if Congress in the US or other governments were to pass legislation that indemnified the corporations, that when employees return to work or when customers are visiting their stores or restaurants or coffee shops or a place of work, if they then were indemnified so that if somebody caught a virus while they were working or consuming, then the firm would not be held liable for that, these places would open up just like that, guaranteed. So, fantastic question. And thank you for that one as we close out Chapter 5 of Marketing Kitchen TV Q&A Live. We'll see you again in Chapter 6. Thanks a lot. Thank you for your questions. Remember, if you have a question that you'd like to have answered here on YouTube, all you need to do is go to @MarketingKitchenTV on Twitter, use the hashtag Q&A, and I will answer your questions here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, there's always fresh content simmering on our storytelling stovetop. So whatever happens in this kitchen shouldn't stay in this marketing kitchen. I'm Ron Vining, your host, reminding you to invite your family and friends to the next episode of Marketing Kitchen TV.